She said she was a SEAL. They laughed, then cuffed her. Under the fluorescent buzz, an Admiral leaned in, eyes on the ink beneath her sleeve. "That tattoo is authentic," she murmured, and every badge in the room went silent. What followed wasn't a story about stolen valor. It was a countdown on a broken watch, and the past catching up. They grabbed Ava outside a bar that smelled of rain and fryer oil. A Friday, neon buzzing, boots scraping, thick hands on thinner wrists. She didn't fight. She counted. 5 steps to the curb, 2 from curb to door of the unmarked sedan. The broken watch on her wrist told her nothing. It had told her nothing for years, yet her fingers found it like a prayer. Inside the car, they read her a script. She knew the script. Words about impersonation and honor, about stolen medals, faces in the rear view unblinking. At the field office, the light bit. Cold white, relentless. Name, Ava. Last name. Which one? They didn't laugh. A metal chair. A metal table. The kind that eats echoes. Her empty wallet lay on the table, thin as paper. They fanned the cards like they were reading palms. Nothing good to say. What did you claim? Nothing. Did you tell patrons you were a SEAL? I answered a question, which was, what the Trident means. They wrote. They underlined. They crossed out. Ava watched a small curl of paint peel from the door. It hung by a flake. She breathed with it. In, out. The flake trembled. "Ma'am," the younger agent said, "you know women didn't pass butt-s." She shrugged. "You sure that's the whole truth?" He pushed a photo across. A version of her stared back. Younger, unremarkable, short hair, a hospital badge clipped to a cheap blouse. Records show medical tech, stateside, honorable discharge. 8 years ago. "Congratulations," she said. "Your records work." The older agent leaned in. He had a nose like a ridge. "Take off the jacket." "You first," she said, and then undid the zipper anyway. The room cooled another degree. She rolled the left sleeve of her black tee. The tattoo came up slow like a tide. No stylized pitchfork. No cliché. Waves, numbers woven into waves. A dagger's shadow hidden in the negative space. Tiny latitude points clustered like constellations. On the inner line, where skin stayed pale, a mark you could miss unless you knew where to look. Not ink, but scar, raised and deliberate. A needle's whisper years old. The older agent squinted. The younger one leaned so close his pen tapped the table. "Anyone can get a tattoo," the older said, but his voice had thinned. "Anyone can get ink," Ava said. "Not everyone can get this one placed." They stared. Time didn't move, but the broken watch kept beating in her head. "You're late. You're late. You're late." A door opened. A woman in khaki dress uniform entered, her ribbons quiet as folded flags. The room stood before the rank even hit the air. The Admiral didn't sit. She didn't ask. She stepped to Ava's shoulder. She didn't touch the ink. She didn't need to. Her voice was meant for no one. It still filled the room. "That tattoo is authentic." Silence took a chair finally. The older agent swallowed. "Ma'am, the database says what we tell it," the Admiral said. Her eyes never left the waves on Ava's arm. "Release her," Keys fumbled. Metal sighed. The cuff marks flushed red. Ava flexed her hands. The Admiral's gaze finally rose to meet hers. No warmth, no hate. Something like recognition, but dragged through miles of gray sea. "We'll walk," the Admiral said. They left the room that smelled of metal and old coffee, down a hall lined with bolted frames. One showed a beach no one would ever walk for fun. Another showed a team that didn't exist. Outside, the rain had stopped. The world still dripped. The Admiral handed back the empty wallet. "You're late," she said.
For what?
"For the part where you tell me why you broke pattern." Ava looked at the cracked parking lot. A dusty road image flashed where a line of puddles lay. Memory does that. Sand out of water, heat out of cold. "I didn't break pattern," she said. "Pattern broke me," the Admiral's jaw set. "Get in." They slid into a gray car that smelled like old case files. The Admiral drove. No music, no chatter, just tires whispering over wet asphalt. "Why now?" the Admiral asked. "Why what?" "Why let strangers hear the weight of what you never said on record?" Ava watched streetlights strobe the glass. "Because a boy asked me what the Trident means. And for a breath I remembered the part of me that still answers clean." The Admiral exhaled. "We had a deal. I kept it, until you didn't." They turned onto a base road. The guard waved them through without looking up. The broken watch pressed into Ava's wrist bone. She thought of the day it stopped. Sand in the gears, heat in the sky. A man screaming in a language she'd learned too late. The Admiral pulled into a hangar where shadows lived. She killed the engine. The echo died slow. "I need a favor," the Admiral said. "That's rich," Ava said. "After cuffs." "We couldn't tip the wrong eyes." "Then the wrong eyes are already watching." A light clicked in the hangar's far corner. Someone stood beyond the glow, not moving, hands empty. "Are not, you always were difficult," the Admiral said. "Try helpful." The figure stepped forward, Ava's throat tightened. "He shouldn't have been alive, Juno," Ava said, but her voice didn't climb. It dropped. It scraped the floor. He smiled like a man who had learned to do everything slow. His hair was a different color now. His left ear was a little gone. "You break pattern," he said, "and my phone sings like a gull." Ava's hand stayed down. "Always down first. You earn up." "I watched you die," she said. "You watched a good copy," he said. "I watched myself leave." The Admiral circled the conversation like a buoy. "Debrief can wait. We have a more boring problem." "Boring's how you bury the living," Ava said. Her empty wallet was back in her pocket. It felt like the absence of a heartbeat. The Admiral nodded once to no one. "Run it." Juno leaned on a crate. The crate groaned. "Someone's cutting our ghosts loose," he said. "Not with hammers. With keys." Ava tasted metal. "Keys we trusted. Keys we issued," the Admiral said. "In a time no one will admit existed." Ava's tongue found the chipped molar that had snapped on a ridge not on any map. She could still hear the crack. "What's loose?" "Names," Juno said. "Locations. Is that all?" She said. He looked at her wrist. He had always stared at that watch like it was a wound that didn't close. "How long since it ticked?" he asked. "Years." He nodded. "Then we're late." They moved to a table. The Admiral spread 2 photos. Satellite shots. Desert and coastline. Dusty roads stitched through both like veins. 2 caches, she said. One holds papers that say no one we love ever lived. The other holds the opposite. Juno tapped the coast. "This one's older. This one smells like us." Ava tapped the desert. "This one's bait." The Admiral's face made no promises. "Which do we pull?" Ava let the room wait. She remembered a wire gate, a child's red shoe, a goat skull hung from a nail for weather luck. "We don't pull," she said. "We go where they expect us and don't be us when we get there." Juno snorted. "You always did love mirrors." The Admiral slid a key across. "Not a door key, a locker." The metal had been handled by people who didn't breathe easy. "Gear?" Ava asked. "Nothing that pings," the Admiral said. "Your face can't happen on machines." Ava cracked the locker. Inside, a canvas bag heavy with silence. A map folded until the creases had their own memory. A knife without reflection. A cheap prepaid phone. A roll of cash thin as trust. She lifted the bag. The empty wallet in her pocket felt insulted. "Transportation?" Juno asked. "Trucks with plates that don't talk," the Admiral said. "And a driver who knows when not to look." Juno hesitated. "What's the part I'm not hearing?" The Admiral's eyes flicked to Ava's sleeve. "Her tattoo." Ava rolled the sleeve again. The Admiral pointed to a cluster of tiny numbers beneath the wave crest. "We built that cluster as a vault," she said. "We left it unfinished." "On purpose," Juno added. Ava remembered the day the needle stopped mid-line. The artist's hand shook. He said, "We're leaving the last digit to the future." She had laughed. The future had not laughed back. "What happens if you finish it?" Ava asked. "Coordinates resolve," the Admiral said. "A lock opens. But only for you. And if I don't?" "Something else opens," Juno said. "Probably our throats." Ava breathed once, twice. The watch stayed silent. "Where?" The Admiral didn't point. She pressed a card into Ava's palm. A cheap cardstock rectangle with a logo for a storage place near the interstate. "You'll know," she said. "It's ugly when the truth greets you." They split then. Shared silences drifted to different corners. The driver showed up, blinked at the rank, and chose not to recognize anyone's face. "Good driver." 2 days, the Admiral said before the roll-up door swallowed Ava and Juno. "Then we talk, or we don't." The dusty road ate the tires. The city peeled away. Juno chewed gum like a metronome. Ava watched mile markers blink like weary eyes. "You shouldn't be alive," she said again, because the first time hadn't fixed it. "Neither should you," he said. "Yet here we are, fixing nothing." She held the map. "No GPS, no breadcrumb." The roads felt older on paper. They smelled of oil and thumbprints. At a gas station, she bought water with cash. The cashier stared at the roll like it might morph into a badge. Long drive? Short life, she said. He laughed until he realized he shouldn't. Back in the truck, she checked the prepaid. 1 bar, 1 text. Unknown number. Don't open what she gave you, she showed Juno. He raised an eyebrow that didn't exist 5 years ago. She who? Which she? Ava said. They both knew too many. They reached the storage place at the edge of a town that died before its sign faded. The wind made a hum with the chain link. A dusty road ran straight past it into scrub and a sky that didn't forgive. Ava slid the card at the kiosk. A light turned green like it didn't care. Unit 17 clanged when the lock snapped. Inside, a duffel, a plastic tub, a toolbox, a folded tarp, a small metal box with a dial. Juno whistled. You and your antiques. Ava went to the metal box. The dial had 30 numbers and a rhythm only 2 people had known. One was buried on a hill you couldn't find with requests. The other was her. She spun. Left, right, left. Stopped where muscle told her to stop. The latch trembled. The prepaid buzzed again. 2 words. Behind you, Ava turned. Juno wasn't smiling anymore. He had a phone in his hand that wasn't the one they'd been given. He had a look in his eyes that said nothing she wanted to read. Put the box down, he said. Ava's shoulders settled, like sand finding its own weight after wind. She didn't put the box down. You died on a roof, she said. Now you point a phone at me. I walked off a roof, Juno said. Now I walk you out of this unit. We can talk on the way. The dusty light cut the doorway into a sharp hole. Beyond it, the road waited. The air tasted like metal fence and stale soap. What changed you? Ava asked. What changed you? He shot back. You stood up in a bar and told the truth. She nodded. That was fair, he gestured with the phone. It pings if you run. And if I don't? It still pings. Fewer times. She glanced at the box. The dial had no time for loyalty. It obeyed sequence or it sulked forever. She'd already spun 2/3. 1/3 to go. Her fingers hurt with remembering. Who are you relaying to? She asked. Juno smiled like an empty cupboard. Everyone who thinks they own us. Contractors? Ava said. Flags, Juno said. Some real. Some sewn. He took a breath. I'm here to keep you alive long enough to keep what's in that box from burning the wrong faces. He wasn't lying. He wasn't telling truth she could spend. The prepaid buzzed again. A 3rd text. Truck, now. Ava calculated the runway to the tailgate. Too long if Juno guessed her feet. Just long enough if he thought about eyes. She dropped the box. It hit concrete with a sound that turned heads 2 rows over. Oops, she said. Juno flinched. He looked down. She moved, past him. Shoulder twist. Door frame bite. Light burned her pupils and then the truck's bed filled the world like a target. She slammed the tailgate. The map slid, the knife sang, the tarp inflated and died. She ripped the driver door. The engine coughed like it had never truly slept. Juno cursed something bitter and older than both of them. The truck leapt. The chain-link gate tried to be a wall, it failed. A ribbon of metal screamed and the dusty road opened like a mouth. In the mirror, Juno was a shrinking figure. He didn't chase. He raised the phone and let the sky take it. Good, she said to the air. Let them come. The road turned to washboard. Her teeth found the rhythm. The broken watch pressed bone. For the first time in years, she imagined it ticking. Not real, not yet. But the idea had weight. She drove till the road forgot its name. She parked behind a low hump of desert that used to be a tractor. The sun was a threat you couldn't arrest. Heat held the horizon up. She climbed into the truck bed. She pulled the metal box back. The last third of the sequence felt like prayer. Do the motions and the door might open. Or you learn you prayed wrong. Left, right, left. The latch surrendered. Soft as breath. Inside, a cloth-wrapped bundle. A stack of Polaroids, a strip of microfilm taped to the lid. 2 dog tags with no branches and a black plastic card with no writing. The cloth smelled like basements and gun oil. She unfolded it and found a small steel cylinder. Its end had a slit meant for light. A viewer, old school. No phone in the world could read this without knowing what it wasn't. She held the microfilm up. Tiny squares of order. People's lives shrunk to dots. She slid it into the cylinder and turned toward the daylight. Faces, places, ledger lines. Payments from shells to ghosts, names of towns that don't exist with dates that do, a photo of a door she had spent 7 months pretending not to see. Behind that door, 6 men and a woman had chosen a war that paid better than truth. On the last frames, the film bent. A smudge. A set of coordinates written with a hand she knew from the inside. The last digit missing, the one her tattoo held. She rolled the film away and checked the Polaroids. The colors had aged toward bruise. A gas station, a church with no bell, a water tower with a word a child had painted. One photo stopped her breath. The Admiral, 20 years younger, shaking hands with a man whose face had always blurred. The blur wasn't the camera. The blur was policy. The prepaid hummed again. This time, stop, look west, she looked. A dust plume drew a line across the flat like a bad decision. 2 vehicles, maybe 3. She had 5 minutes if they drove like they believed in laws. She had less if they didn't. She stuffed the film, the photos, the tags, the card, the cylinder into the bag. She left the empty wallet where it lay, because someone might believe that poverty explained speed. She turned the truck's key. The engine hesitated. She whispered the name of the first person she lost. The engine caught like old friends do. She didn't run toward the highway. She ran deeper into dirt. The dust plume changed its mind. It pivoted. So did the sun. She cut the track, then left the road for scrub. Tires chewed brush. The underside complained. She aimed for a low wash, dry riverbed, a scar in the land that loved to hide things. The truck dropped and floated over pebbles. The world narrowed to walls of baked clay and a strip of sky. Ahead, the wash split. One branch ran toward a stand of cottonwoods that had no right to be alive. The other ran toward a culvert under a rail line no train used on paper. She took the culvert. Dark swallowed the cab. The air turned cool and damp. The broken watch felt cold for the first time in years. On the far side, the ground rose. She climbed, slow as conscience. The dust plume paused on the wash lip and then poured in. She stopped in the shadow of a rusting tanker. The paint flaked like old snow. She cut the engine and listened. Engines grew. Voices called. Not her name. Words like clear and left and down. People who trained the same way her bones had learned to move. She slid from the truck, slid under it, pressed her back to frame. She breathed through cloth. Gravel pressed the spine's language into pores. Boots, 4, 6, 8. A pattern you didn't want to finish counting. A boot stopped beside her bumper. A hand dragged along the tailgate edge. It left a line in dust that matched a fingerprint no one could file. Truck's warm, a voice said. So's the desert, another answered. They laughed softly like men who knew how to. Somewhere above them a hawk screamed. It sounded like a child with an ending. A boot crouched. A face dipped. A lens glinted. Ava's grip found the knife in the bag. Her thumb kissed the notch that kept fingers. She felt the world tilt toward the next thing. Then a phone rang. Not hers, not theirs. A ringtone chosen by someone who didn't plan to live long. The men froze. The face near the bumper turned. The lens caught sky. Ava rolled. Out. Up. Knife a line of light. The nearest man had time to say, and then the world became movement. There is a kind of quiet inside noise. She walked into it. Elbow, blade, heel, dirt, breath. The tanker boomed a hollow encouragement as someone's shoulder found it. She made a hole where there wasn't one and ran through it. Back into the wash, back under sky, back toward the cottonwoods that had decided to live. A shot cracked another. A third bought nothing. She dove under roots. Heat and shade negotiated. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it. Stop running, the text said. Come home. She typed a reply that wasn't words. It was coordinates. The part from her tattoo that no one else had. The last digit she hit send. The phone asked if she was sure. No, she said and tapped yes. Air shifted. The cottonwoods trembled. Somewhere far away, a line unlocked. The ground vibrated. Not trucks. Not boots. Something heavier. Something that arrived only when you finished a sentence the old world began. Shadows crossed the sun. The helicopter hugged the horizon like it had a secret to keep. No markings, no name. It moved like it owned physics. Ava stayed under roots until the wind shredded the top layer of the wash. Grit stung her gums. She smiled so she wouldn't curse. The men in the wash didn't shoot at the sky. Good men learn not to waste bullets on machines that don't care. They pulled back, fanned to positions that give answers to questions no one asked out loud. The helicopter circled once, twice. On the third turn, it dropped something small wrapped in bigger noise. It hit the sand with a clink. The men froze again. A whistle cut the air. Not alarm. Maybe welcome. Ava belly-crawled to the drop. A cylinder. Not much bigger than the one in her bag. Same slit, same steel. No label. Only a tiny notch, same shape as the little scar woven into her ink. She pressed the notch to the scar. It clicked. The cylinder sighed and opened like a mouth that's been quiet too long. Inside, a scrap of map with a dot that hurt her eyes. It wasn't new. It had been folded inside a decade. The dot wasn't in desert. It was on water. Not far from a coast she had never admitted missing. A cove that no one liked to sail into because compasses behaved like they had better places to be. She folded the scrap into her palm like a confession. She slid back to roots. The helicopter wheeled north and vanished into sun. Boots moved again. The men spoke into radios that argued with dry air.